maka na abụ m onye Igbo ihe mme Igbo amaka if you see me call me onye Igbo maka na abụ m onye Igbo ihe mme Igbo amaka anywhere I enter they call me onye Igbo maka na abụ m onye Igbo ihe mme Igbo amaka all over the world they call me onye Igbo maka na abụ m onye Igbo ihe mme Igbo amaka.
March 2022 edition of the Center for Memories monthly distinguished speaker series Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. Anyị na-anabata onye ọbụla bịara mmemme a tata. We say a very warm welcome to everybody. Sorry that we're starting a little behind schedule. We had some challenges we needed to tackle, but that notwithstanding, we'll go ahead from now. So you're very welcome to this edition. We hope to have an exciting and engaging session as usual. So at this point, we would have a short spoken word performance. So I'm inviting Mazi Ude Ibiam. Biko Bagote, Biagwa Gagwa na mgbede.
Igbo bụ Igbo na-ekene mo. Igbo mụrụ m ekene mo. Ọ bụ n'ijele Igbo bụ Igbo nọ n'ọgbọ. Ọ bụ n'ijele Igbo bụ Igbo nọ n'ọgbọ. Otu Nwachukwu mere ije wee dị mfe ọ ma bụla eziokwu. Igbo na-ekene mo. Agbanna ya ukwu Chinu Achebe kwuru okwu wee sị na onye nọ na be ya wee kpọnụ ụmụnne ya ka ha bịanụ ka ha bịara ike ọnụ na ọ bụghị na agụ ha maka na ọ fụrụ na o nwere ihe dị mma na ụmụnne ga-anọkọ ọnụ ọ fụrụ na o nwere ihe dị mma na ụmụnne ga-anọkọ ọnụ ma bụla eziokwu maka na ụtọ ụmụnne bụkwanụ na nzukọ ka ọ dị asị m na ụtọ ụmụnne bụkwa na onye fụ n'ụzọ ọkpọtụrụ n'ibe ya ma bụla eziokwu Igbo bụ Igbo ekele oyi ụmụ Igbo unu ga-enu m ntị n'olu oyi ụmụ Igbo unu ga-enu m ntị n'olu maka na ebe nsi bịa bụkwa na be ndị mmọnwụ asị m na ebe nsi apụta bụkwa na be ndị mmọnwụ maka na ndị mmụọ agụnyego m ọkụ asị m na ndị mmụọ agụnyego m ọkụ si m bịazi n'ife na nzukọ anyị nke tata ma bụla eziokwu biko na Igbo unu ga-enu m ntị n'olu oyi maka na ọ bụ na ijele Igbo bụ Igbo nọ n'ọgbọ asị m ọ bụ na ijele Igbo bụ Igbo nọ n'ọgbọ oyi ọ ma bụla eziokwu asị m agakatakwa n'ilu kechi azụ asị m agakatakwa n'ilu kechi azụ oyi maka na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo anọghị n'iru asị m na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo nọ n'azụ asị m agakatakwanụ kechi azụ maka na azụ mbe bụ n'ụlọ ya azụ mbe bụ n'okpo ya azụ mbe bụ n'ife eji wee mara mbe asị m agakatakwanụ ka anyị chigha azụ asị m agakatakwanụ ka anyị chigha azụ oyi ọ bụ n'ijele Igbo bụ Igbo n'ebe n'oyi ọ bụ n'ijele Igbo bụ Igbo n'ebe n'oyi Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ oyi achọrọ m ka imetụrụ nwanne gị aka gwakwa nne ya na Igbo bụ mmọnwụ asị m ka imetụrụ nwanne gị aka gwakwana ya na Igbo bụ mmọnwụ na Igbo bụ n'ụdachi ọ bụ na igirigiri nke mbụ na Igbo bụ n'odogwu anya mme asị m na Igbo bụ n'odogwu anya mme mana ya emego n'odogwu isi ya wee penụ mpe asị m ya emego n'odogwu isi ya wee penụ mpe maka na agwa anyị na-akpasu n'asụsụ Igbo ọ bụ na agwa na-agba n'anya mmiri asị m na omenala anyị na-emeso n'asụsụ Igbo na ihe gbasara ndị Igbo bụ na ihe na-agba n'anya mmiri ọ bụ na gịnị na-eme n'oyi Igbo ọ bụ na gịnị na-ese n'oyi ọ bụ m na-eme ọ bụ na aja afọ ọ bụ m tere ọ bụ na aja afọ Igbo ọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo bụ Igbo na-ajụ oyi asị m ọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo bụ Igbo na-ajụ oyi aga m ekwu n'ole maghara ole aga m ekwu n'ole maghara ole ọ bụrụ na Igbo bụ Igbo ekwuola aga m ekwu n'ole maghara ole ọ bụrụ na Igbo bụ Igbo ekwuola ọ bụ na gịnị na-eme n'oyi mma Igbo ọ bụ gịnị na-ese n'oyi ọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo bụ Igbo na-ajụ oyi akwa na-eme na mgbalaju ndo ọlarụ na anwụ enye nwata nke karịrị ya ọjọọ ya enyere ya nye onye akwa na mmadụ na be egbule ga-adịkwa na be ehi na mma gbule egbule ga-egbukwa n'ehi na atụ isi eji ama atụ ekwesịghị mmanwụ asị m na osisi eji ama atụ ekwesịghị mmanwụ ọmabụla eziokwu ọmabụla eziokwu akwa na-asị na-emeche n'ụzọ esi mpio akwa na-emeche n'ụzọ esi mpio akwa na-emeche n'ụzọ esi mpio la n'elu na nwaanyị na-eme n'ọdụ esi akpataga afọ ime ụmụnne m ụzọ anụ m afọ ime a na-ekpuchi ya aka ụmụnne m afọ ime a na-ekpuchi ya aka Igbo ka anyị chigha azụ maka na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo nọ n'azụ emekacha asị m chịkọtakwa na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo anyị lekwa n'anya na asụsụ anyị asụsụ Igbo na omenala Igbo na-alazi n'ike asụsụ Igbo na omenala Igbo na-alazi n'ike akwa ndị ọcha bịara na be anyị bịa gwa anyị na nsibidi anyị ji ede ihe bụ ihe dị njọ anyị enwere nsibidi anyị nwe ha nye na mmiri ha bịakwa bịa gwa anyị na omenala ndị nna nna anyị bụ ihe dị njọ anyị enwere omenala anyị nwe ha nye na mmiri gịnị ka ụka ekpemekpe mere n'ala anyị gịnị ka ụka ekpemekpe ka metere n'ala anyị mana anyị werego nke anyị wee hanye na mmiri onye ji ihe eche ejiji ndị Igbo wee pụta na-achị ya ọchị onye ji ya asụ n'asụsụ Igbo a na-achị ya ọchị gịnị mere na abịa n'ụlọ akwụkwọ dị n'ala Igbo abịa n'ụlọ akwụkwọ dị n'ala Igbo nwatakịrị sụọ Igbo apịaba ya ihe mana ọ sụọ Igbo akụbara ya aka Igbo ọ bụ na onye na-eme na anyị ọ bụ na gịnị na-emenụ ọ bụ na gịnị na-ese n'oyi ọkwa na ajụjụ ka ndị mmụọ sị ka m jụọ maka na anya mmiri na-agbanụ ma ọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo obi Igbo na-ajụ ọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo obi Igbo na-ajụ ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya maka na akwa gụnyere anyị n'aka ọ na n'aka anyị wee nwụọ na ihe dị ukwuu ga-eme maka na ihe na-eme n'ụlọ anyị tata na ike agwụgwọ dibịa gwụnụ mgbọrọgwụ ji wee gwọọ ọgwụ a sị m na ike agwụgwọ na dibịa gwụnụ mgbọrọgwụ ji wee gwọọ ọgwụ ọ bụ na aja anyị chụrụ nye ndị nna nna eruru ha aka ka ọ bụ na ndị nna nna nke ha nyere anyị eruru anyị aka kedu n'ebe mmiri si wee bịa n'okpu gbọgọrọ ọbụla ajụjụ ka Igbo obi Igbo na-ajụ oyi kedu n'ebe mmiri si wee baa n'opi ụgbọgọlọ kedu n'ebe mmiri si wee baa n'opi ụgbọgọlọ kedu n'ebe mmiri si wee baa n'opi ụgbọgọlọ bụ na ajụjụ ka Igbo obi Igbo na-ajụ oyi nke ị na-eme na-akwalite asụsụ Igbo asị m gị jisie ike na onye nwe anyị ga-agba gị ume mana ọ bụrụ na ọ gị na-ekwalite asụsụ Igbo ma omenala Igbo esebo ma ala wee ya ọ ga-echiri aka elu sị gị bikonu ka anyị chigha azụ maka na ihe mere anyị ndị Igbo nọ n'azụ asị m ndị mere anyị ndị Igbo nọ n'azụ lee n'ihu na agha adịghị ya lee n'azụ na adabajaba adịrọ mma gaba igo na adịrọ mma jebe ejebe adịrọ mma ịmakwa na Igbo na anyị kwuru n'ofu ebe na akịka tagbuo anyị asị m anyị kwuru n'ofu ebe na akịka ga-atagbuo anyị oyi ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya ọnụrụ karịa ibe maka na dibịa kwute n'ihe dị ya n'ọnụ ọha ofeke weela mmụọ asị na dibịa kwute n'ihe dị ya n'ọnụ ọha ofeke weela mmụọ ọ bụ na ikoro ndị ụmụnne na-akụnụ asị ma ọ bụ na ikoro ụmụnne na-akụnụ n'ama onye nụrụ ikoro ọkọ ọrụ ndị ya ihe ikoro na-akọ onye nụrụ ikoro ọkọ ọrụ ndị be ya ihe ikoro na-akọ asị m ime m ihe na a ga-eme m agbara n'ikwu nne m ikpe bụ ikpe n'ikwu nna m agbara n'ikwu nne maka na ikpebere n'ikwu nna ọ bụ na ikpe ziri ezi ikpebere n'ikwu nna ọ bụ na ikpe ziri ezi ya mụọ gị mụọ gị onye Igbo ṅụrịa amụọ gị mụọ gị onye Igbo ṅụrịa maka na Igbo bụ n'odogwu bụrụ anya mme Igbo bụ n'odogwu bụrụ odogwu anya mme Igbo bụ n'odogwu bụrụ odogwu anya mme Igbo bụ n'odogwu bụrụ odogwu anya mme ọ bụla ka ọha m n'ọnụ ọnụrụ karịa ibe ya ọnụrụ ihe m kara akarị be ya ọ bụ na akwa ka Igbo obi Igbo n'ebe n'oyi ọ bụ na akwa ka ijele Igbo obi Igbo n'ebe n'oyi Igbo ma mma nọ mara mụ na gị Igbo jọ njọ nọ gbọrọ mụ na gị ndị manye ekene m ka ọ dị ka anyị afụrụ mana anyị fụkwara na mbọsị eke dalụnụ.
Another round of applause, please. All right, so at this juncture, it's pertinent to note that the Enugu Sports Club has been a very wonderful partner or supporter of the Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe lecture series. Over the years, they've allowed us to use this venue, for our event, and over the succession of chairmen that we've had so far, we've always had chairmen and members of the sports club who support the Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe session. So at this juncture, we'll call on the vice chairman of the Enugu Sports Club, Mr. Ipa Uzodigwe Nabo. Thank you so much, sir. So We would invite you to come welcome us specially, but so that has always been the tradition. Thank you so much. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for him.
Good evening, everyone. You are all welcome. And as you know, this is Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. And I think that Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe should actually promote our language. Ọ bụrụ na anyị si n'Ụmụ Ịbe na-akpa nkata, anyị kwesịrị ịkpa nkata n'onu eji mara Ụmụ Ịbe. Ya bụ na onye na-abụrụ nwa Ibe na ọ bụ onye na-esoro n'Ụmụ Ịbe nwere ike ọma na-ata ife anyị na-eti. Kama na kịta na-eche m na ihe eji kpọlite m ka m kene unu, ka m si unu nnọọ na ngwuru anyị ka unu nọ. Onye isi anyị His Excellency Beneti Aba na onwe ya nọkwa ebe a. O nwere ihe ọbụla anyị na-eme na klọb ọ na-ada abịa ma ọ nọ n'ụsọ. Biko kọrịa n'aka maka nke a. And oge ọchị klọb a, ọ chịkwa klọb chịta klọb ọfụma wee kponite klọb enu ọ banye n'ọnọdụ klọb kwesịrị ịnọ. Anyị na-ekene ya maka nke ahụ mgbe dum. Ana m ekenesi unu ike maka Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. Maka nkata a na-akpa bụ ka ekwuo ife ekwesịrị ikwu, ka ndị kwesịrị ịnụ ife a na-ekwu nwekwana ike ịnụ ife a na-ekwu. Maka ọhịa ka Chinachebe ji wee dee n'ofu akwụkwọ ya wee sit until and unless the lions start having their own historians, that the history of the hunt will always favor the hunter. Ka ekwena onye ga-ekwuchitere agụ ma ọ bụrụ na agụ a na-ede akwụkwọ, agụ ama jiri aka ya wee kwuo ife mere na ike niile ọ kpara, ọ dinta ga-ede. So ihe niile dinta dere is just to glorify the hunter. Onye nwa bụ dinta. So none okwusie unu ike na anị na unu nọ na be unu ka anyị kpawa Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. Information is power. Thank you very much and welcome once more.
Biko ka anyị kpọọrọ ya aka ọzọ. Yes, because the Enugu Sports Club has, like I said earlier, they've been our one of our best partners on this program. But the program is still the Center for Memories program. So a lot of people now have been a sports club, have been a center, has said, echekwa m this sports club they make Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. Ọkwa this center and this sports club. Mana otu a ndị sports clubs wee kene anyị ga-anụzi from onye Center for Memories. So at this point, I would invite my boss, the Executive Director of the Center for Memories, Mr. Ihanyubuku, to tell us about the Center for Memories and some other information about our other programs that we do apart from Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. So Mr. Ihanyi, please. Please, let's give him a round of applause as he comes on.
Ndị Igbo, ekene m. Good evening, everyone. Mgbe Chief Mike na-ekwu okwu, ọ sị na Chinachebe that until the lions begin to tell their story, that the story of the hunt will glorify the hunters. You know, onye waka bata ndị Center for Memories ji wee fu mkpa ọ dị iji wee kwado omenala asụsụ ndị Igbo. So Center for Memories bido na 2017. It was set up to be a repository for the Igbo history, culture, and identity. Because ị na-anya na mpaghara ala Igbo niile, even ma n'ụlọ akwụkwọ, ị ga-afụ na asụsụ Igbo bụ ihe na-ana ma na ezinụlọ anyị dị iche iche. So onye bụ mkpọ ọ dị anyị ji wee bido ihe niile anyị na-eme na Center for Memories, ọkachasị nkata ụmụ ibe nke a na-eme kwa Friday mbụ n'ọnwa. Isiokwu ya bụ iji wee stimulate an intergenerational discussion, so ka ndị na-abịa abịa marakwanụ ka ihe ndị nọ ụnyaahụ na-eme, wee marakwanụ ka anwa ga-esi wee kụzikwara ụmụ nke ha in the nearest future. So enwekwa other programs a na-emekwa dịka exhibition ka anyị ga-enwekwa echi. Our speaker for tonight ga-abụ onye ga-emekwara anyị the exhibition tomorrow na Center for Memories. So anyị na-ayọkwa onye ọbụla ka unu gbakọ ọnụ bịa join anyị by 12 o'clock tomorrow na Center for Memories. It is the first exhibition of the year for Center for Memories. So anyị na-enwekwazi book clubs, adult and children book clubs. Anyị ga-enwe nke this month on the 3rd Saturday of the month by 2 o'clock na the Center for Memories. So onye ga-akọwara anyị ihe banyere nkata ụmụ ibe nke anyị na-eme n'abalị, m ga-akpọnite nwaada Ifeọma Nnamani ka ọ bịanyere anyị aka. Ndewo.
All right, thank you very much. Eji m obi aṅụrị wee na-anabata anyị na nkata ụmụ ibe nke ọnwa March 2022. Dịka ụfọdụ n'ime anyị si wee ma, so nkata ụmụ ibe bụ an initiative of the Center for Memories. Maka center bịa decide na anyị need inwe a platform where we can gather every month ka anyị nwee conversations, kpaa nkata dịka esi wee marụ ndị Igbo around those critical issues gbasara anyị dịka ndị Igbo. Nkata ụmụ ibe bido na 2018, na May 2018. And between then and now, we've had several speakers who've come to speak on, issues around governance, issues around identity, issues around our shared narratives and values, dịka ndị Igbo. The inaugural edition of the lecture, na May 2018, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who spoke on Igbo Ekunye, lessons from post-war recovery in Southeast Nigeria. Then after him, in June 2018, we had Professor Okendibe, and his topic was Echidime, Ndị Igbo and the Parable of the Snail. Then July 2018, we had Dr. Okeikechukwu, and he spoke on Ejindu Emegini, Foundations of an Igbo Rebirth. In August of 2018, Dikechukwu Merije spoke on Jidofo, Politics of Conscience and Ideology. Then in September 2018, we had Chief John Nyanwu, and his topic was Ife Jimali Igbo. Then October of 2018, we had our very first female speaker, international award-winning journalist, Chika Odua, and she spoke on Nkiruka Azubike, The Future is Supreme, but there is strength in the past. November of 2018, we also had another female speaker, Chioma Yvonne Mbanefo, and her topic was Gidigidi Bugweze, There is Strength in Numbers. Then in December of 2018, we had Dr. Chuba Keshi, and he spoke on a very interesting topic, Kedundianibo, an inquest into Igbo identity. Batazi 2019, and we had our very first Nkátá lecture in February, because we couldn't hold the lecture in January because it's assumed that many people now for December to eat rice and eat chicken and drink palm wine had not come back. So we had our very first Nkátá in February of 2019, and our speaker was Chinenye Mbauzuku, and his topic was Onyekwe Chinyekwe, Igbos in a Digital Economy. March of 2019, we had Ike Chioke, who spoke on Mpuronye Koro, Reinventing Enterprise n'ala Igbo. Then in April of 2019, Dr. Joe Abba came to speak on a very important issue around governance, and his topic was Ohanweze, Governance Matters. May 2019, we had Ferdinand Dago, and he spoke on the topic Nkemjika, Harnessing Our Human Capital. Then in June of 2019, we had Dr. Chichi Aniagolo Okoye, and she spoke on another very interesting and important topic, Njikoka, Rebuilding Resilient Igbo Families for the 21st Century. July of 2019, we had Frank Nweke Jr. and he spoke on Maka Ọganiru, Igbo Renaissance and the leadership question. Then in August of 2019, Professor Philip Effiong Jr. Took the Nkátá stage to talk on Ikwu Kananne, post-Biafra healing and reclaiming our shared ties. In September of 2019, we had Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu and he spoke on Akọnuche, the education delusion. October 2019, we had Uche Onwamewu Ugwu and she spoke on Ọzụzụ na Nhazi Ndị Echi Ga-Adị N'Aka, mentoring the youth to greatness. Then in November of 2019, we had award-winning author Chika Onigwe who spoke on Amamihe, owning and controlling our narratives. Then in December of 2019, we had the CEO of God is Good Motors, Chidi Ajere, and he spoke on Ikemefuna, passing the baton for posterity. Then in 2020, COVID happened. And unfortunately, we could no longer gather as a people to hold conversation around those issues that affect us as Ndị Igbo. COVID chụba inside, and we couldn't hold Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe. But then in December of 2020, we held another Nkátá session, and we had Professor Osita Ogbu, who spoke on the topic, Ọganiru bụ Ntụgharị, Development as Attitude. And then in 2021, we also had another very long break because we had a lot of challenges kickstarting Nkátá again. And then last month, February 2022, we had award-winning author and lawyer Professor Cheluchi Onyemelukwe take the Nkátá stage to speak on Ahamefula, reaffirming the Igbo identity in challenging times. And today we've gathered again to have our Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe to, sit and converse as brethren to talk on those issues that affect us. And our speaker for tonight is a man of many talents, a man of many parts. And when I say that, by the time I finish his bio, you understand why I called him a man of many parts. So our speaker, Ifesinachi Nwanyanwu, is not just an award-winning artist, visual artist, he's also a poet, he's a philosopher, environmental activist, and Nigeria cultural ambassador. Ifesinachi was born in 1975. He grew up in Nsukka, and he's done extensive works, mostly using waste and found objects to create conversational art pieces, modeling labyrinthine creative growth that interwove socio-political texture and spirituality. Ifesinachi is also a recipient of many awards. There are so many listed here. Nigeria Dream Personality Award in 2016. He's also been a panelist at Harvard Kennedy School, Africa Development Conference, and so many that we cannot go into today. And interestingly also, Ifesinachi is also the founding executive director of Environmental Arts Collective Foundation and the curator of One Environment. His new works are a accumulation of years of research and working with soda cans, giving birth to a new phenomenon he calls liquid metal and sculpted liquid, smelting soda cans to create monumental installations that enkindle entirety. And there's something, one of the things that define our speaker for tonight, there's one of his popular quotes. He said, "One man's trash is another man's treasure." And tonight we're going to listen to him talk on the very, very important topic that we've gathered here to speak on, NKÀ NA ụZụ, a journey into Igbo art and architecture. Ifesinachi works and lives, he shuttles between Abuja and Prague. Please, with a resounding round of applause, please let us welcome our speaker for tonight, Ifesinachi Nwanyanwu, as he takes the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Ndị kwuru ekwugo mana mma anakwa excuse na mma sụ ngiri Igbo. Ngiri Igbo na onye ntinye English ma etinye Igbo. Amobro ma mbe ekwu na ọ bụ na mara ahụ ihe a ga-eme n'Igbo throughout kwado ọfụma. But thank you for having me today by choosing this topic. One, I'm an architect. I'm an artist. And my interest in this topic is also because of my practice over the years. And to begin with, at least, I don't even see this as a lecture, so to speak. I see it more of a conversation, just that the mic is on. But at the end of the day, I don't see this much as a lecture. I would start by first talking about the art, Nkà. You know, like Igbo, we so much believe, or we so much have this cultural inclination, mellow, I just feel wine as, you know, people who akasilike na. And in our art, as in Igbo, our art is very mobile, very dynamic behind them. You watch our history, you feel that now we are people who are very, very organic. And when I come to discuss about Igbo art and architecture, what are the linkage to that, and also to my practice as an environmental artist? Maybe by saying that our art, as in Igbo, like I already said, is very mobile. And if you think about us as a people, looking back to, you know, years and years from where we've come from, what I'm even saying today is not like it's a new idea. I'm more or less regenerating an idea that had always been there. You know, I'm not talking about architecture as if there's a new way of architecture that I'm, you know, trying to bring out. No, I'm talking about something that has been there. And even the information I will probably share with you people is also an information that I have gotten through my own personal experiences and through research, through reading from people who are very versed in Igbo culture, like Chinua Achebe and the whole other people that we revere in Igbo culture. So what I'm doing today is just probably to get ideas from here and here, mix it with my own ideas, and, you know, serve you people what I think is what we should be doing. And what are we actually doing? I'm trying to go back to Igbo culture, architectural, our architectural culture, which is a material culture, which is something that you can identify in Igbo with. Like, Igbo Isiago, you can identify that Noya Boyi Igbo. If you Uwoji, you can say that Noya Boyi Uwoji by his uniform. So, but even in Igbo, we've had a lot of cultures, Aina Arapu, gradually dematerializing. So my focus is how do we stop that erosion of our culture in terms of architecture? Because we have a very strong architecture, but because of the globalization and our colonial past, we seem to begin to forget some of the huge cultural identities we have as Igbo. And that is where my conversation starts. How do we begin to regenerate some of our cultures? How do we begin to tap into the resources that we have around us and start to create something that is very sustainable? Art, as we all know, is a medium where we can always express any human endeavor, because art is like history. Art holds what has been before and also shows an idea of what could be tomorrow. So in Igbo art, Ndi Igbo were Uli, which had always been there, and in our architecture, where we use mud, red earth to create buildings, design buildings, but these days, these things doesn't happen anymore. Because in our villages now, you see buildings that look very European, which is not in our culture. So my idea, and with the works that will be exhibited tomorrow at the center, is trying to see how we can start a conversation that will begin to look back into what we have and how do we process it for the future. For instance, the mud houses that we have in our villages, it's no more there. If mud houses now is probably as a relic that, once upon a time there was this mud house. But now, nobody is actually following through that line of regenerating these mud houses. So my idea is to help us or to trigger a conversation that will prompt us to begin to look inwards in our architectural design, in our cultural materials. The thing that identifies us as an Igbo. You go see on the China now, you can easily tell them that, that's Chinese building. Or you go see an Italian column. You can tell me that, that's an Italian column, that's an Italian architecture. And the idea is that for us, Igbo, and in terms of the values, the center for memory is somewhere. We believe that it's time that we begin to have this conversation because cultural identity is very key in self-preservation. Mputa now, na villages, the mud houses is also environmentally, it follows the green principles of architecture where you have energy efficiency. Because I don't see why. It's also about energy efficiency. A lot of houses, a lot of people are homeless, or a lot of people don't have houses because of the cost of materials. But then we have these materials, but we don't make use of them. Why? Because we now feel like if we build houses that don't have these European designs or European architecture, then I ain't buying naga.
All right, so let's give a round of applause to our speaker. All right, so of course we know that after the speech comes the Nkátá, the discussion. So kita kaiga banyezi na Nkátá aiga apa na mgbeda. So thank you very much, Mr. Ifesinachi, for that wonderful speech. Lecture, sorry. So right now I'm may invite the moderator, because we're going into a moderated session. So the moderator for tonight, who is also the curator of the exhibition I gave a page in a Center for Memories, but no other person than Mr. Ndubuisi Ahanono. Because
what's the strength of Uli in our architecture?
Yes, I think the only people which is the SO station and what we're talking about.
Yeah.
To me, it was the nationalized culture of the European traditional architecture. So it was the advocacy of going back to go forward, which is, I use that element to say, putting back the tail back to come to myself, like going back to go forward. So speaking of material excellence and how architecture defines it, which is one of the things you mentioned earlier, do you think adaptation of intentional organic configuration of building, which is commonly seen in the world, into modern contemporary architecture will help in construct our buildings?
Yes, I believe very well, because Uli, like we all know, it's something that is very cultural, to Igbo. Because if you look at the history of Uli, it was something, I believe that everybody here understands what Uli is. Because even Nollywood is even helping to some extent to sustain that art of Uli. Because in most movies, you have 4 people, and when you see body paint, especially movies that are epic, that they date back in the time. So these are Uli. And for me, it started from the female body before it got into our architecture. So having it back into our architecture today is something that can easily be used as an identity to say, okay, look, this is Igbo. You know, just like we have it in our body, having it in our buildings, and in a more contemporary way, because art itself is a process. You know, the things you produce from art is always there, but the process is always evolving. The process is very mobile. You know, so I'm not saying that we should get the same, because of course in Uli you have different symbols in Uli, and the animals, the motifs, they all have different meanings. But in our own contemporary world, we can always infuse what we see in our contemporary world to what has been passed on to us. But the most important thing is that they become identifiable as a cultural material in Igbo.
So what Ifesinachi is true, and the rest is true, and that is what we call material history. It's never touched, it's never compared, it's always meant to connect you to your identity, but it will give you a sense of history as much as a sense of location. So, our problem is that question. So, contrary to the communicating expression that highlights social and political fields of the people, the artists, the architects, most importantly, the environmental and social artists. As an environmental artist, how have you successfully adopted these two roles?
I just mentioned it when I was speaking, that my materials had always been waste. So I tried to regenerate those materials to create something new. And in my practice as an artist, and to answer your question, I feel that I've answered those two important questions by one, repurposing of the materials, regenerating of those materials to create something new. And that is why I'm also saying, like, because the materials, because they are waste, they are often seen as dead materials. And that is also why I link it to the conversation on Igbo architecture, because our architecture has become a waste. If you go to the villages now, the mud houses are like relics. You know, next to it, maybe a mud house, maybe the wall, or maybe just part of the window is still there. So they are waste, they are relics. But in using the material, the soda cans that I'm using, and repurposing them, bringing them back to life, but in a new way, that's also why I'm linking it with our architecture. How do we begin to bring back our architecture, you know, which we've already forgotten because of globalization and because of our colonial history? How do we begin to bring back this architecture? How do we begin to have these materials that are around us? You know, like, how do we begin to tap into these materials? Because if you are all talking about environmental issues, climate issues, and you have these materials around you, and you are not employing them to work, and you are waiting for materials from England, from Dubai, from Malaysia, you know, it can be sustainable. The practice can be sustainable. So that's why, you know, the whole concept is, how do we begin to have energy efficiency in our designs? So to answer your question, you know, I regenerate the materials, you know, for environmental sustainability, and I also use the same conversation to bring back our architecture that is a waste.
Thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. I hope the question to be because at the beginning, Ifesinachi wishes this to be a conversation more than election. So please open this question contributions. Thank you.
Ọ dị ka anyị si na-ekwu ije na things fall apart, just the back page. Let us even look at just the word or the sentence, things fall apart. You know, before things can fall apart, he's telling you that it's not only one thing. There are things that have been together, tied. Eventually, something come to break the string that was tying it, and of course, they fell apart. I think, like I said in my opening remarks, language is key. The knife that cut the strings that was holding the Igbo people together was the introduction of religion, the type of education the white man came with, colonization. Yeah. That is the knife. And now we are still holding the same knife and thinking that we are going to use that knife to bring us together again is a major mistake. Look at our speaker. Look at our moderator. 90% English. How can it work? They are not even making any attempts to speak Igbo as our language so that we can go back to move forward. Can you speak Igbo? No, that is the culture. Because we were deceived by Igbo ka Igbo mma. Yes. Ịbata n'ụlọ nwatakịrị sụọ Igbo itie ya ihe si asụrụ Igbo. Anyị ejiri maka ya ihe niile anyị nwere funeri anyị anata nke ndị ọcha. Kịta anyị echetego na anyị ga-anachi ebe anyị si, mana anyị mara ihe ahụ ndị ọcha jiri bịa eji wee mebi nke anyị ga-edobegoro ya n'akụkụ wee weta nke anyị. Ọ dị ka otu anyị siri nọ na ije ịkpọta onye nkụzi ga-akụziri mathematics, ije kpọta onye dara mathematics, onye nwere mathematics F9 WAEC, isi abụrụ onye nkụzi kụzibere ndị ga-enene WAEC, o nwere onye ga-pass that subject. So anyị ga-edobegoro oyibo n'ụsọ. Ọ bụrụ uli ka anyị ga-ekwu maka ya, uli anyị ka mma than tattoo anyị na-eje eme today. Very well. Anyị ebido nachigodo azụ mara ka anyị ga-esi wee kwuba okwu gwa ndị Igbo okwu n'onu Igbo ka ndị Igbo wee ghọta ha anyị na-ekwu wee bido banye n'ihe anyị na-eme. Maka ọ bụrụ na anyị nwa bụ ndị Igbo bụ ji nke ndị ọcha kịta a na-asụ Igbo bụ ihe ga-abịa kụziere ndị Igbo Igbo, ị ga-eji oyibo wee kụzi Igbo, ịmaji oyibo wee kụzi Igbo. Nwa bụ ebe nsogbu anyị dị. Oke echi anyị ga-afụ ihe a ga-egosi anyị ụlọ ahụ ị na-ekwu maka ya and ihe ndị ọzọ niile. Anyị ga na-eme demonstration asụrụ ya n'oyibo. Nke a na-eme afọ n'anya karịrị nke a na-ekwu ekwu anụrụ na ntị. Biko ọ bụrụ na ndị nna nna anyị ha bụ ndị dunyere anyị ebe a ha dunyere anyị kịta isu Igbo ji afịazi anyị arụ, ka anyị jiri aka anyị pụtara from kịta. Onye ọbụla chọrọ igwa anyị okwu ya nsụbagodo Igbo ya nwa ike ya nwa gbagodo. So anyị na-anwa ebe a ka anyị ga-ebido ka anyị nwee ike ịma na ihe anyị na-ekwu ọ ga-enwe isi, maka na o mebigokwe maka na ụfọdụ ndị igwe bụ ndị na-achị anyị iwere ọjị ya onye igwe ọsụwa oyibo and the only job igwe nwere bụ custodian of gịnị tradition and culture. Ya ka ị na-ekwu maka mmọnwụ a na-ekwu. Mmọnwụ must be represented by ihe na-aga ije. Adafụ spirit anyị mana mmọnwụ ahụ ịfụrụ na-aga onwe spirit nọ dị ya ịma apụtakwu ihe ka anyị si ekwu ya kịta ịmanwụ a na-anazi ịtọ to ụmụ nwaanyị anara phone number n'iru ọgbọ. Nke a bụrụ na omenala Igbo nọ. Biko ihe unu na-ekwu ihu nji maka ya wee bịa taa dị mma, ekwetere m, mana anyị ga-eje kpọta ndị mmadụ, ego ga-abakwa ya ahụ ka ebido ịchọ ịlụ ụlọ gị lụọ ya n'ihe ahụ ị na-agwa anyị. Nwanne anyị nwoke moderator ọchọ ịlụ nke ya lụọ ya, anyị gosibe ndị ọzọ, anyị abịazi aṅụmibe ihe unu na-eme, kwubezie ihe ka ọ na-aghọta onye ọbụla asụbagodi Igbo kụzibe. Okay, now ọ na-agụ something na ya, a na-ekwu na o nwere ebe a na-emezi Igbo as a course either in UK or in US, a very big university adopted Igbo language as a course. So ọ bụrụ na ndị anwa mebe ya, ha nwere ike nara anyị anyị na-achọ ime ebe a emerezie ya n'obodo ndị ọcha. Ị na-asị ka eko si wee dị, mana anyị nwa hapụrụ ihe nke anyị nwere, ndị ọzọ anara anyị. So ekene m unu n'ihe niile unu na-eme, mana anyị ga-agbasi mbọ ike gbado ụkwụ n'aja wee nweta ihe anyị chọrọ. Ekene m unu. Daalụ.
What I wanted to ask was about ihe m chọrọ ịjụ bụ maka economic viability of like repurposing stuff and trying to get Igbo architecture to become powerful again. Because in anya na North ebe na-ekwu, ndị North, most of their ndị masons, ndị na-arụ ụlọ, maka ha ga-esi wee rụọ ụdịka architecture ha, amaka ha ga-esi wee design ya, ha ga-esi mee ihe niile dị na ya. Ndị enwere ebe a, most of ndị na-arụ ụlọ ebe ịjụ architects ma engineers, ha ga-agba gị nọ ndị Togo, Cameroon, bịa na-abịa ebe a, and ihe ha ma bụ plain old masonry a na-akụzi ha, so ya ka ha ga-arụ. Beyond ime this thing as art, because for now I'm seeing it as an art form, how do we take it to a place where it is economically viable? Because it happens across everything in the Igbo Juebiri, or what we have as our culture. If you look at something like our kwete, which is supposed to be like traditionally Igbo fabric, we around in our area, it's not even art. Isiagu is not produced in Nigeria. It's not predominantly our cultural ihena. But the akwete that is our cultural material, we don't have them. I'm not sure if you're going to find more than 2 persons who are doing the akwete thing. So how do we move from just speaking on preserving our culture as art to preserving our culture to the form where we can export it, where it can become economical? Because if we're not talking about it like that, most people will not want to engage. Because it's not art, that's fine. Art is something that someone can create in the next 20 years. Or when you see. But when you're telling a young person or someone that is interested in like the economic value of something, oh, this is how it's going to be. Even in trying to convince the populace, telling them, okay, now mod is this way and that way. You have to be able to lay out like an economic viability plan for how people are going to adopt it. So in essence, my question is this: how do we adopt the Igbo architecture to become economical? So if you are to be asked, can we put all of the English and colonial whatever vestiges in our building, ways? How are you going to impute it so that everything, all the processes from the person to the person Garud, what's your plan for it?
I'll try my bambo council Igbo. So and so na onyerem so all those ajụjụ na-abụ ọ dị ịtọ echezogo m ofu so ka njọ Igbo an na-echete kịta. Now the first one goes directly to you. You say your neighbor an environmental artist, so it implies neighbor and upscaling or something like that. So the question, say for instance, a central table, it's not from our client, and what you're talking about our culture. So that's a direct question, I'm assuming. Then the second one about practicality, which is even the lady Nkátá. I believe that the future of architecture or buildings both vertical, not horizontal, which is what we are doing, or the more economical, or the more environmentally friendly, because we take less land to build that way and accommodate more people compared to area this way. So the question in anya, if which is more or less why into tomorrow I'll go and build a house, whereas my father alone, and I should occupy all so long as the quality of the house is quite good. So two things: one, care the quality of owner if we are using mud, and then secondly, care the plan this is not for you directly, because then we ended the more competent in that field. So get the plan to use what we have or what we've had from time past. Where we don't consider the more we multiply, a problem of Nkátá for so they need somewhere to be sheltered. Get the plan that vertical house. I guess you get what I'm saying. That house vertically, and then make your strong, where accommodate more people, because the NKÀ so far, more than one story. So that's that. Then the other one, something I really need to say. Stone's throw from this place, I know now, one of the most important buildings named, which is the old parliamentary house or something, and we are just here now, not less than a kilometer away. That house, Enugu state government promote here. Nobody now this whole state they went in about it, and I think it's wrong. I just think it's wrong. Most people here in the government are there, when we have something of historic value to us. The recent, the modern, which is something we identify with, and nobody's saying anything about it. You get what I mean? So my point, what do you think now? Enugu state government got each local government don't we think it's going to promote our culture? It's even going to be more symbolic than Ibieba and Ifa. It's something I think we need to consider. We meet these guys in government, there are things they need to do. We've done things as a people capable of doing some things. Let's enthrone that culture of excellence individually, collectively, and the best way to do so through government. Thank you.
English I na-asụ ọgwanụ na akpacha anyị na-asụ English mgbe m to na Nsụka nọ secondary school ọkwa isuo Igbo na school eke ego ọkpọ so ihe anyị na-esitekwa n'ihe melụ anyị na-ekwuzi okwu dị ụbọchị nke taata anyị na-etinye English because ka esi wee to mmekwa na anyị mere anyị effect alụtara m na Nsụka high school oge a nsụọ English eke m ọkpọ nalụmụnwọ nkobo anyị akwụ ụgwọ so anyị gara atrai kwa ekwetara m n'ihe ikwu nwanne mma atrai sụọ Igbo and to ada anyị nwaanyị kwu maka nke dị economic value first and nke izizi as onye artist mbụ my primary role is to trigger a conversation like we are having now. I'm not a policy maker. My own is say, okay, look, because I just were village, I see I will put that. I will be here. I just from one rural place where I put that before we don't develop it. So my role is to bring out the conversation. Then I told the best way to take it further. But to everything, this today, was a secular economy. And what is secular economy? Secular economy is that when you produce something, you don't just produce it without having a desire, a return back to where you started. So if you're producing plastic, for instance, you design a plastic and also design how you should be able to collect the waste from that plastic. For instance, Coca-Cola now, on their 11 million. Their design now is how do the consumers drink it. They don't have a design on how to recall back these plastics. And that is why we have environmental issues, environmental pollution. So every business, every venture, supposing we're a model or designing, so that at the end of the day, the economic value of that venture is not lost. So I say, but now let's go back to our traditional mud house designs. And like I said, I wasn't emphasizing that we should go back to mud house. My emphasis was that now we should begin to be more indigenous in our designs, in our consumptions. And I know very well that once IGBO, a project like this, to go back to the roots and begin to have indigenous plants, of course, people everywhere, those people now other ventures in the building industry. All it takes is, like, for instance, if government says, okay, look, low-cost houses are going 5,000 low-cost houses are going. Let us do it in our own material culture. Government is one of the vehicles that drive this kind of initiatives. And then you begin to employ people. So for me, the economic value in this thing is there. It's just that it hasn't started. The project hasn't started. When it starts, people that will do it are there. In the villages, people in Jakaha, those people are very capable of doing this. The issue is that the money to kickstart this is not there. People are not building it. When I go today, say, okay, look, I'm going to go and build one house in one village. Of course, instead of buying this and buying that, don't want that money in our village. The people around there, and that's why I'm saying that it's energy efficiency. Energy efficiency means that the materials are within your locality. You don't have to go far to get those materials. So the people that are around those localities becomes automatically employed because they become part of that project. And that is the whole economic value. Okay. Then my brother, I recycle materials. I upcycle materials as well. And your question, whether my use or tire, low, it's actually upcycling, not necessarily recycling, because I'm not breaking down those tires into something else. They are still in their normal form. I just use them to do center table. But then if you look at it, one of the problems Nigeria and Africa as a whole is that we are a consuming continent. We don't produce. So when things are imported from outside our environment and they're dumped here, we get stranded with what to do with them. We don't know how to recycle them. We don't know how to. We don't even know what to do with them. But those people they produce here, when it becomes a waste, they recall it back and they reuse it. So all the tie-in around. We don't even know how to do that because we don't produce tire. So how can we recycle that? That's where it comes to upcycling, where you can now use them to create table. Because what you are doing when you use them to create table, to make furniture, is that you are saving them from going to the environment where they will be more harmful. You will have made table not like your house. It's not harmful to the environment. So you are saving the environment already. That when you leave it out there, plastic bottles are now for now. Research shows that it takes almost 500 years for them to break down. So when you don't make use of them, recycle them, save them from the environment, you're exposing the environment to damage. So when you see people that are picking waste and using them like the tires to create furniture, I give them a lot of kudos because without them, those tires would have ended up in landfills or in so many other places where they become very harmful to the environment. So that's why we talk about recycling, upcycling. Nigeria, we are a consuming nation. Obunabu, a manufacturing nation, and I say, okay, when we manufacture the tire, when it has expired, we take it back to the manufacturing plant. They can use it back and create something new. But because we don't manufacture, we end up having this waste here. So the best way we can save the environment is by not allowing them go back to the environment, but trying to use them to create something that will keep them away from the environment. Sorry. And then about the building, whether we go vertical or horizontal, it also boils down to what we are discussing here about cultural identity, right? Our architecture, because Ndi Igbo, we are very communal in our architecture, and being communal is also about the family, how our family, most of our families in Igbo, before, we are very polygamous. All these things we are part of our culture. It's part of the design in our architecture. And that is what we are saying. Let us keep it. We don't need to go vertical. We are talking about indigenous culture, indigenous identity. What do we have that is our own that we can develop? We don't need to go vertical. What houses are any being get vertical? Because in vertical buildings, Europe and all these other places, that's why you get a neighbor, next door neighbor. If we are nosy, Mama don't know you have a neighbor. Because for like 2-6 months, we get everyone every day. But that's not our culture. So why should we get it makes us apart more than we are. But if we keep to our traditional identity, our cultural identity, which is communal, then we have to keep on that horizontal architecture, which makes us more together. Abandoned building, Marapia Bakande Sina Haga Nomakia. We live in the tropics, so why are we having architectures of Europeans where their buildings are not designed like a winter, like a winter. But I put a good design. They are here. I have no winter. But I love what houses. And I put a will say if you tell no. In CFR is anti-mosquitoes. It tells CFR, what do you mosquito matter? Mosquito don't know the but after they will their own architecture, better than their lawyer. But we've been so blessed with our own resources that we leave the mosquito. One of the biggest sicknesses I went in Africa and Nigeria, but malaria. But we have the resources fight those materials, to fight those mosquitoes, but we don't employ them. Up and down cells or them, and we don't see if it there. Even today, people are manufacturing paints from CFE because the CFE is anti-mosquitoes. So these are the things that we have forgotten, but we forgot that these resources are here because of our own climate. Also that Ana Mefi get Yesubu, Chukwe because why? Because in every environment, Chukwu the intellect, how you manage that place. Ndị ọzọ na-enwe winter, ọrụ abụọ n'oge winter. If it has not to stand that cold and to create things here, we stand there that cold. But I want to allow but the resources because mud houses do not make your house hot. Open in 1 minute from it declare it's very cold. It being a mud house, it's very cold, it's not hot. but you put walls, you get America, you got paint. Those paints have chemicals that makes it hot because they live in a cold environment. So the properties of their materials is always geared to make their places hot, warm. But upon one I did water their own. AC. So I can continue.
I said I'd love to start with a quote that's often attributed to pious and impious. He said that we must modernize the tradition and traditionalize the modern. I've heard you mention something about making paint from shea fee. And then I feel that even as an artist, an architect, or an eco-environmentalist or whatever, it's still important if we make emphasis on people understanding that we cannot really have everything the old way. I think you are making so much allusion to that, because even as man, from Australopithecus to Homo erectus to current Homo sapiens, there must be evolution. So we must try to find a way to balance what the Igbos used to know and what is currently happening. So if we want the Igbos to return to what it used to be, we might not be able to have that 100%. So what is the effort towards making it a sort of a balance between the old and the modern? Because if you ask someone now to use the mortar and pestle we used to use before, some people might find it very difficult. So how do you ensure that people will love the idea of going back to things that were of Igbo origin and making it still comfortable for them given the modern age? And now there's something else I've noticed. People often attribute local as something bad. If you say, I want to attend my local church, or I want to attend the local ceremony, people always give it this inferior look. So do you think that people will want to go back to something that is aboriginal given the current situation? Thank you so much.
While you spoke, you talked about most of what you do involves recycling waste, and I loved what you said about making it energy saving, or
energy efficiency. Yeah.
Energy efficient, right? So my question is, in addition to like making it energy efficient, and then the question that Ebere also asked, making it economically viable, I want to understand how the work you do is also environmentally friendly, because now I'm thinking of the smelting of soda cans that you do. How do we balance? So we're trying to recycle, take away waste and build it into something else, but then it's almost like, because you're going to burn the soda cans to melt them or smelt them, and then we make them into something else, and in that process there's like emission of carbon into the environment again. So it's almost like it's defeating the purpose, because in trying to recycle, you're also like emitting carbon into the environment. So how do you balance that? How do you prevent, how do you conserve the environment while also like trying to recycle? Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to come from the point of education. What do you think? What do you think? And you have made it emphatically clear that you are just trying to bring out something that can be a policy. Okay. I want to recommend, I don't actually want to ask a question because it has been in my heart, so now that I have the opportunity, let me say it. I want to recommend that we actually look back into our educational system as Igbo. I'm a teacher and I'm also a broadcaster. And with my years of teaching in secondary schools, I teach Igbo. With my years of teaching in secondary schools, I've gone through what we have as Igbo syllabus. It is nothing to write home about, let us say the truth. Currently now, almost all the schools in Enugu State are using Mbidi Igbo. If you open Mbidi Igbo and read Mbidi Igbo all through, you will not see something that reflects culture. You will not even see something that reflects deeply into the changes that may have occurred through culture or where we are and how we are going to get from where we are. There is nothing like that. The one I'm currently even managing to teach is one basic education that was published many years ago. So I don't know the package we are having in terms of our education, because, for example, my school, almost all of them there, especially JS1 students, JS2 students, they are foreigners. They were just brought back to Enugu just to learn Igbo. And if as a teacher I'm not grounded in Igbo, or I don't know all these things we are talking about, I will teach what is in Igbo. And they will leave the school system too, not getting why their parents brought them back. And secondly, I have engaged almost all the teachers in Enugu State, and I found out that only if we are 20, only 5 of us understands what the culture actually says. And if you check the syllabus, there was no part that was provided that something like this should be taught to the students. There is no part that was provided that the Omon should be taught to the students. And I will give a very clear example with this. There was a time we were talking about Ewoji. So they started asking me, what of Ojinda Nacha black? What of Ojinda Nacha yellow? What of Ojinda Nacha? That was when I started explaining to them that Igbo kola nut is this way, Ojinde Osa is this way, Ojinde is this way. And from that explanation, we now entered into Mon. And I saw the excitement. I saw the joy. They even started telling me the different names they have in their villages and everything. But in our syllable, it's not provided. So if, for example, I'm not maybe a passionate teacher that likes Igbo language or culture, I will not have that privilege to teach them. So what I believe that we can actually do, apart from talking about it here and living it here, if we can have a system that retrains Igbo teachers, especially those that teach languages in school, Igbo language in school, that retrains them in order to, enlighten them. Last 4 days, they had a teachers meeting at UNEC. And I was just telling myself, I wish this was just like a cultural language teachers, this thing for everybody in Enugu State or even outside Enugu State, just for teachers to have this privilege of sitting down and learning what is not in that book, so that the children can stand a better chance. Because I believe, and I normally say it, that if you are a youth and you are from 20 years up, no matter how you want to convince me, there are some things you will not do. There are some, in fact, the interest in Igbo is going. But I believe that from 19 years down, still have a chance. And if we can actually put our heads together in terms of educational system, I think we can actually correct this and have the society to be better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okwu m abụrụ ajụjụ, mana m chọrọ itinye ya isiokwu nke anyị na-ekwu tata. N'ihi na ụfọdụ n'ime anyị rapụrụ isiokwu anyị ji gaba n'ihe ọzọ. Isiokwu anyị bụ nka na ụzụ, nke a na-akpọ creative arts. Mgbe gboo, ọ na-abụ nwata afọ ihe a, ọdụ ya mma n'anya, ọ na-atọ ụlọ, o were ihe o nwere n'ụlọ mee imiteti ya ahụ ọfụ, asị na onye a nwere anya nka. Onye nwere anya nka, ọfụ ha n'ihe, ọ bịa mee ya. Igbo ewepụgo anya nka, nke bụ na anyị fụzi ihe, anyị achọrọzi ka anyị bịa were ihe anyị nwere na aba anyị mee ya, anyị ejeze ka anyị golube egolu. Onye bụ ebe nsogbu anyị bido. Enwere onye machara ihe, anyị nwere ike ịfụ nke ndị ọcha, bet ihe doziri anyị bụ anyị fụ nke fa, ka anyị nata bịa were ihe anyị nwere mee ya. Anyị nwere ike ime research, anyị afụgo ụlọ ndị ọcha na ọ na-eto toruo n'igwe. Kedu ka anyị ga-esi mee ka anyị refine aja anyị ji arụ ụlọ, aja anyị nwere na be anyị, refine n'ụdị anyị ga-eji rụba nke anyị ka o rukwuo n'igwe, instead of ije na-ego cement bụrụ importers. Ọ ya bụ nka na ụzụ. Ihe a bụ ihe ebe anyị welu nachie azụ, develop nke anyị, were resources anyị nwere mee ya, ma so ndị ọcha aka si ha na ihe anyị nwere. Ofu inwe anwa mere anyị during the Civil War, anyị were nka na ụzụ rụpụtaba ihe anyị ji nụ agha. Beta nụchara agha, anyị kwasa ya. Ọ bụrụ na ejidekwere ya rụpụtaba, ọ ndị ọcha na-ekwu na anyị nwere war weapon, anyị na-ekwu na anyị nwere nke anyị. Beta anyị wụsara nke anyị gobezie nsọ nke ndị ọcha, nke ọbụla ha rụpụtara anyị tie bekee bụ agbara. Kedu ebe agbara nke anyị nọ? Ka anyị chọpụta agbara nke anyị, were ife anyị nwere rụpụta nke anyị. Ekene m unu.
Ihe m na-ekwu bụ ma ndị mmadụ ga na-achị azụ na-eme ka ndị nna nna anyị ha mee ma otu a, ọ bụrụ ya ka m na-ekwu. Nwanne anyị nwoke mere anyị welcome here, vice chairman, say that na ndị ọcha were asụsụ anyị asụsụ nke ha wee gburuzie anyị egburi. And that is eziokwu, because the greatest thing melụ anyị and melụ ọtụtụ ndị ọzọ around the world is colonialism. Because mgbe mmadụ mee gị ibido na-feel inferior to yourself, it takes years to be able to come out from that abuse, where somebody ga-asị gị na mbọ gị abụrụ ezigbo mbọ na ị ga-eyuzu mbọ ọzọ, or somebody ga-asị gị na ka isi ekwu okwu ọ bụrụ na itinyere ya fune ịma na ike ebidoro. Somebody asị gị na ị ga-ewetarata ihe na-abụrụ nke gị tinye na nke gị ka o wee bụrụ nke enwee validate ego ka ị wee so n'ihe a na-eme. That is one of the greatest things mere anyị, colonialism, before globalization ebidodo nke ya. Because what that did to us bụ na ọ bịa were our culture, our tradition, gbalụọ ya sizie anyị that na ihe bụ nke anyị abụrụzi nke anyị, that na we are inferior to that. And that is why what the conversation na-enwe here today abụrụ ka anyị na-achị azụ ga-were usi efi chebe n'ụlọ anyị. No, ị gaa na Malaysia, ị gaa na China, ị gaa na Asia especially, these people have mastered the art of iwelu ihe bụ nke ha, process ya, mee ya ọ dị better, mee ya ọ bụrụ something ha nwere ike export to other places. That's what I'm saying. That na anyị nwere nke bụ nke anyị, the mud houses, the nsiefi, whatever it is, anyị nwere bụ nke anyị. Let us begin to see how we can repurpose them, how we can re-engineer them to be better than ihe ndị nna nna anyị ha nwere. Because today now, no matter, all of us with TV no. I mean, I don't TV, but we have TV. I want a fridge, but I don't have fridge. I want AC, but I don't have AC. Why? Because we live in a contemporary world where you were tanker. It's in your house. Your house, I think, at least going be the 21st century. So that means I did Lubao, Africa, Wulu, Africa may roof, Wulu, CFT. No. But these are materials simply just up the euro and halfway. So the best thing we can do is how do we begin to process. That's why I say that art is a process. The product that has been produced is there, but the art of creativity is very mobile. It's very fluid. So the mud house Nanai Hollow is there as relics in our villages, but the creative process, how usual lawyer, is very mobile. So we can begin to do it so that even our own kids, when it comes to their own time, they can begin to also re-engineer what we have done. That's the way it is. So the idea is that we should re-engineer, improve on what we already have. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we should go back to mud houses and stay in mud houses. I'm saying that these are properties that we have, these are materials that we have, that the best way we could do them is not to throw them away, but how do we recall them back and how do we repurpose them? And my sister Ifoma, you talked about non-smelt aluminium, which also contributes to environmental issues. Absolutely right. But the thing is that, for instance, the work I do is a controlled work. It's not open for environmental degradation. And even if you look at it from your own angle, it's like the plastics that we are saying, everybody is saying ban plastics, ban plastics. The issue is not plastics. The issue is the management of the waste. produced by the plastics. You know, for plastics about now, they won't do anybody any harm. But when you don't manage the waste, that's what we're talking about. We need plastics to build a lot of things in the houses. But the challenge when we talk about plastic pollution is that we haven't been managing this waste properly. And for me, that is smelting. I smelt in a controlled environment. So it's not like na puta, na abapo carbon everywhere. No, it's controlled. You know, but the issue, like I said, when we talk about environmental issues, challenges, it's always about the management of those wastes. Plastic, glass, name them. It's always about like how do you actually manage the waste that's been generated by these things. That's why I'm talking about like circular economy. The idea has always been that when you produce, you have a circular design that also recalls back the waste, and you are just circling around, not just a linear design where, you know, like once Golia. That's not the design. My brother who went to school, the teacher, I think it also boils down to what I was trying to tell my elder brother here, that now, when no school, it's so English, it's a problem. I mean, it's so in a government school, not a private school, the government school is so Igbo. You get punished. You know? So, all these things will be high, build it up, because most of the curriculum I use are curriculums that has been there over many years ago. We're not having new curriculum. One of the things that we are championing with my institution is to have a curriculum that makes it compulsory for students to at least pass environmental studies, not just maths and English. But if you don't pass environmental studies, you're not going anywhere. Whether you want to study the lowest of any course, you must pass environmental studies. So the issue about this is something that the government has to come in, because as private people, we can only do advocacy. You know, but the implementation comes from the policymakers. At the end of the day, hopefully, it will come to a point where the policymakers will begin to implement these things. Because without it, like you said, you know, right now, my kids, I speak Igbo to them. You know, I try to speak Igbo to them. I'm not English, but English they will learn. But I made it a point of duty to also speak Igbo to them, no matter what. So thank you very much. Onye ọbụla pụta, nwoke na nwaanyị pụta na mgbede a, nkata ụmụ ibe bụ ihe na-aga aga. So nke a just nke a just obele ka ekwugo. So ama m na ọzọ ka ga na-abịakwa, bet ekele ebe onye ọbụla pụta for the support and everything. And tomorrow I hope to see you people at the exhibition at the center. So, Dalon.
Otega aka ebidoro ife a na-akpa nkata kwa ọnwa. Ife mmemme akwụsị ịkpa nkata for just a few months. On the last month, ebidokwa with Professor Cheluchi Onyemagwe. Mana o nwee ifeme after akpasịrị nkata nke ikpeazụ na papa nna mụtalụ Cheluchi Onyemagwe ka agbagbu n'oko about a week ago. Ifeme achọ biko nụ ka nye ụmụnne m, ọ bụ na anyị ga-enwe ike ịkwụ ọtọ for 1 minute ka anyị wee cheta memory Professor Onyemagwe agbagbu. Ka anyị na-echeta memory ya, ka anyị na-ayọkwa Chineke nna ka e welu mkpụrụ obi ya na ndokwa, and ka e welu ya as a point of contact for ụmụnne anyị niile a na-egbu n'izu a maka na ife ọjọọ na-eme n'ala Igbo. Chukwu ga-enye aka n'oge a mee aka na ife ga-adịkwa mma. Biko 1 minute from now, may the soul of Professor Onyemelpe and those of the recently departed slain n'ala Igbo rest in everlasting peace of the Lord. Amen. Anyị na-ekene Enugu Sports Club maka mgbeda. Na-ekene the club through the vice chairman who gave the opening remarks and the welcome address. We're so grateful to you, sir. Jisienike, uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. I don't have to bother anymore, have sleepless nights anymore about Enugu Sports Club. So we're grateful, very grateful to you. Nekene, our distinguished speaker for the month, okay, and the moderator as well, who came to be with us. And but just to remind us, Nechi and Enwe exhibition precisely on the same subject matter that he spoke about. The conversation continues. What happens with Nkátá Ụmụ Ịbe goes beyond the four walls of this hall. It is a global event, and you know that we're now in the 4th industrial revolution in the world, where information is key, is power, and the Center for Memories may take great advantage of that to reach our people in diaspora. So whereas we're not 1,000 in this hall, we have hundreds of thousands who will come across this series and come across this edition tonight. So my brother, Imamwa ndi gwara okwu n'abalị a, anyị na-ekele gị. Daalụ. Anyị nwa bịara ebe a, okwu anyị ji bịa ka anyị ga-eje na ka ọ dịla anyị mma n'ifi Jizọs Kraịst bụ onye nwe anyị. Daalụ na ụmụnne m.
So just before we go, biko ka anyị chetakwa na echi anyị ga-enwe exhibition. Mr. Ifesinachi ga-emepe the exhibition on NKÀ NA ụZụ, a journey into Igbo ingenuity through arts and architecture. So please, let's try to be there at the Center for Memories. The exhibition emepe by 12 noon. Also, biko, the Center for Memories is an Igbo project. So as much as possible, we need your support for the work that we do. Biko, we implore you to try and support the work of the Center for Memories through your through the various means it is possible. So before I guess a group photograph, and the group photograph will happen just down, just below. So when I guys say the photograph, everybody is actually invited. Please come forward. Let's take a group photograph before we leave.